Give them one at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, let's go to JP1. And that's,
One is that's an annual renewal for Eaton for our HVAC at the backup center.
okay, I need a motion.
I'll move it.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. JP2.
This is to accept the PSAP grant in the amount of $220,950.
Move it.
Need a second?
I'll second it, but it looks like it's to just add the additional 30,000 because the 220 was already budgeted and looked to me like you were getting 30,000 more than you thought.
No, we have to increase revenue and increase expenditures to use it for the chairs because those were not budgeted.
Oh.
But since we have the grant, we're going to use it for the new dispatch
So it's
chairs.
adjusting certain accounts
Yes.
that you didn't want
That's
to
correct.
initially budget for. It's
correct.
out of the same 220.
Yes.
Okay, that was unclear. All right.
Yep.
Okay, any other discussions? Questions for JP? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. JP3.
But I'm glad you're here because the Yates County resolution is on the agenda.
Yes, I was listening in my office. We actually would like you to pull that one. I had called Yates County. We are thinking about doing a shared services with them. I did talk to, I don't know if it was the sheriff.
The sheriff.
there. And he was going to talk to the county administrator who I never heard back from. So I didn't realize it was on the agenda because we want to
I
wait
didn't either.
the contract maybe like starting January, not start it prematurely and then not have a count.
Yeah.
So you just,
So
You pull it.
want to poll?
Yes, please.
Okay, JP
Thank you.
will be pulled at the request of San Liv.
I have a question. Will the savings be to our county or Yates County, or how will it work if they approve it
I
as
don't
a
know.
shared
Depends
service?
what obviously we can convince the state to do. You know what I mean?
That
So-
Yates is saving money by using us
Sure, they
or?
aren't, they aren't.
They're saving a lot of money.
Yes.
You know, I mean, the worst case is we didn't build a tower. We certainly could be charging them and we weren't even going to do that. So I mean, certainly we're saving them money by letting them, use the tower. So it definitely should qualify as a shared service thing.
But savings for them or for us or who?
Well,
else?
it could be for them, but they could share it with us.
Gotcha.
You can
Okay.
split your savings however you want amongst your municipalities, whatever you agree to.
Yep. Okay.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Just we didn't want to do it prematurely and then have it not qualify.
So JP3 is pulled. All right, any other questions for Denise? Whoa, we got hands
I
everywhere.
didn't know. I just had a quick question. This database analyst is really kind of sounding like he's doing the work Nicholas used to do for various departments.
He does.
Right.
He doesn't do it to the extent.
Right.
So the planning department has somebody who does a lot of
Yeah.
that. He does the stuff that's associated with 911.
Okay.
There's mapping stuff that's associated with us where like hydrant layers and that kind of stuff
Okay.
that's our 911 functions.
So he's primarily meeting your 911 needs.
Yes, oh yeah,
Yes.
he's just doing
Okay.
ours, correct, yep.
And my only other question caught my eye, suicidal calls, 209. Are these people calling 911 saying I'm thinking of taking my life?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, those are the types of calls.
Not,
That's where I had that brief conversation last month about, we have to do something with those positions because the things that these people have to deal with and go home with every night.
but there is a hotline for mental health too. They're not using it. They're calling 911 saying,
That's-
help me. I feel like I'm going to kill
Right,
myself.
and we send a response.
Wow.
I feel like they're kind of abused, right? Like everybody calls 911 for everything.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Well, so yeah, so a good example, and actually I'm glad this came up. When I came in Monday, I had an email from one of my floor supervisors about when it's okay to shoot geese. This is a DEC thing, and this is the kind of stuff that we field. So, yeah,
My answer to that is whenever on my farm.
we'll send them your way anytime.
Please.
You know, it is, and the suicidal calls are tough because, like I talked about last month, you have the woman who called, she found her husband hanging. And you walk her through how to cut him
That's what
down.
I wondered if is it more I'm feeling to take my life
It's
or
both.
someone,
You
yes.
have people who say, I just took a bottle of ibuprofen and now I changed my mind. Well, you can't change, it's kind of late now, so you walk them through, emergency medical dispatch until responders get there, or such and such cut her wrist and we need a response. So that's, you've got now law enforcement and medical responding.
Lydia?
Thank you. Denise, hi. So since the Auburn City ambulance changes have gone into effect, how has that impacted your center?
It's been a significant impact. we're managing, but I'll be honest, it's more of an impact than we expected. The city's busy. They really are busy. So now, the dispatching of them is seamless. And that's nice, not having to make that phone call. But they also do all the facility transports, all the transports from ACH. So they're busier than I think they expected to. And therefore, when they're on those transports, now we're pulling we're pulling Fleming, we're pulling Troop, we're pulling AMR. So we're still grasping for ambulances more frequently than I think anyone ever expected.
Any other questions for?
Rationale for giving you the additional staff.
Yeah.
Got it, yep.
Okay. Hearing none. Thanks, Denise. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up would be Lloyd Hoskins. Fine council.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you have an opportunity to read my August report, if you have any questions or concerns, I just would like to point one thing out. In August, we had the highest of at our centralized arraignment, we had 81 arraignments. That's our highest that we've had since we started centralized arraignments back in February of 2020. So, it's a strain on the custody division, who's doing an outstanding job, as well as our defense attorneys, and as well as all the local judges in the DA's office. So the numbers just keep climbing. So I bring that to your attention. So far this year, we've had 541 arraignments, which is on pace to probably be more than we had last year or the year before. Two other things. Last month, we approved the supervising attorney's position for the St. Council office. We had 4 applicants, all local. I've interviewed all 4 applicants. I was ready to consider one applicant Friday, and that applicant withdrew her name. So we're down to 3 applicants. So I got to go back and see of the 3 which one rises to the surface. So we were ready on Friday, and now we got set back a little bit. And again, last month in my report, I had indicated that we had applied for distribution number 13, which was $131,000 for these complex cases. And I went back to the office today after our meeting upstairs and got an email from Indigent Legal Services that we've been approved for that $131,000. So
Very good. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, on the record that, Lloyd has been desperately trying to quit his youth bureau job and we desperately won't let him. He has completed the youth bureau RAP or whatever funding application so that the money can come into the county in the absence of a youth bureau director. And he's also been part of our interview group. So I do want to recognize that and thank you for doing that.
thank you.
Any other questions for Lloyd? Mr. Chairman.
Lloyd, who's on that interview process for? Is it just yourself?
Just myself.
And you feel we got 3 good candidates left?
Yeah, three candidates.
They're all local.
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you.
Can I?
Yes, sir.
So maybe this might be a conversation. It might take too long. I just racking my brain here. I'm interested to see with some of this data, because of the new bail reform and all that stuff. So maybe it's just me. I'm not processing it. Is it 58% overall were released on their own recognizance? Is that safe to say? Okay, so.
And this was a kind of a lower month. Usually the percent is in the 60s.
Again, according to the law, I just found that a little interesting. So maybe perhaps a conversation we could have later that, not that I agree with the law, but according to it seems as though a greater percentage would be released ROR. Do you any?
But out of 10, you're releasing 6 out of 10.
I mean, again, it's too high a percentage in my humble opinion, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, I guess.
Anybody else for Lloyd?
Andy.
Go ahead.
So question on the 6 out of 10, how many are we seeing back again?
It's hard to judge recidivism rate.
The discouraging point are the ones coming in on a bench warrants. That they haven't been to court, so the judge is issuing a bench warrant. So now they're being picked up on the bench warrant. They're brought to the centralized arraignment. The judge and the defense attorney and the DA have no opportunity in that at all. They've got to be released again because of the bail reform. So now they're released again and they don't come back to court again.
So it's a waste of.
It's a whole vicious circle until, some of the judges now are writing on their bench warrants, remand. And so the sitting judge will know to remand.
Because they're in contempt of court at that point, is
Well,
that why?
yeah, they have failed to show to their court appearance.
Which means it's a lot of wasted sheriff, Auburn police time and whatnot to bring somebody in for something that's a waste of time in planning. So listening to you, Denise, all of you, I get it. But when I know people are sick of hearing it, I don't give a damn. When are we going to address the real problems in this country that are leading us to this point of having all of these issues? There's obviously something driving it. Let's figure that out before we try and figure out all the rest of this that we can't figure out. We don't have the ability to, or the money, or personnel, or anything else.
Mr. Petrus.
No, I'm good. I won't do it.
Okay. Anybody else? Thoroughly. Lloyd, thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Good job, Lloyd. Thanks.
Next up would be Mr. Dr. Adam Duckett. He's the coroner. I did send him an email requesting that he show. I see there's an odd number up there. Is that by any chance him? No? 31525. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
But anyways, apparently I did not get a response. Heidi, I know you asked me. I did send him a letter. It was a little later than I really wanted because it slipped my mind for a while, but I did send him a request. And I have not heard back from him from that email. With that, we'll move on. Brittany Antonacci, District Attorney.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I don't have any significant updates. We've been, everyone's very busy. We've been working very hard. We've actually been down 2 attorney positions, no fault of anybody. Our new hire for Deputy Chief is going to start October 3rd, so that will be very welcome. We've been down another attorney due to an illness related. So that individual's been out for a little while. We have had full grand jury days. The past 3 months, I don't think we've had one opening in our grand jury days. So we've been very busy. A lot of felonies. We've had an increase in felony arrests, increase in felony indictments. So that is pretty consistent with what Lloyd said with the cap arraignments. I do have 2 resolutions. One is JP5. I'm looking for authorization to accept a grant from the New York State Office of Victim Services to continue our victim witness program.
Okay,
Move it.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carried. The next one up would be JP 13.
Yes, JP 13 was a late addition. I'm looking for authorization for the creation of a temporary leave bank for one of the members of my office. That individual will be out of leave any type of accruals at the end of September. I anticipate that this individual will run out of their time.
Okay, I need a motion.
Move it.
I need a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, carried. Any questions for the district attorney?
Thank you, everyone.
Yep, the district attorney did have another resolution. It was pulled, JP4. There was a request to pull it and we did. So Other than that, thank you, Ms. Antonacci. Next up, I have to kind of giggle, would be the EMO office. Riley Shirtliff is noted on the agenda, but Riley is still in the state of Alaska. I see the EMO has a resolution.
I'll move it for discussion.
I'm.
Wanna do it that way?
Yeah, I just want to get down to that resolution. Here, I have a motion to
Second.
approve. I have a second. Any discussions? The resolution basically to accept funds from the state of New York and administrated by the New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services to assist in New York State's emergency preparedness efforts for the Finance Department to amend the 2022 EMO budget. It is on your paperwork. I think basically it's to increase revenue 72,000.
Yep.
And for 44302 and to increase the expenditure of 72,000 for 54520. Matt, if anybody has any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carried. Okay, next up on the list would be JD West Valaire. Jay, are you on? I don't think he is. He did send me an email saying that he had an emergency family issue and that he would not be here unless there was something that somebody had. I believe his report is here on the so unless there anybody has any questions, we'll move on. He did not have any resolution. Next up would be the sheriff, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Submit my report, just an update relative to my report. We did take in an additional 6 federal inmates that were boarded in. I know of at least 3 sheriffs across the state that have had to push their federal boardings out because they just don't have the staffing to maintain them. So they've had to shut down areas of their jail. So our numbers are back up to where we had hoped they were going to be at the beginning of the year. I know that there was a report that was given to you about the fact that we were down at the beginning of the year, so we weren't going to meet our revenue projections. But these additional 6, we're up to 43, which should help us get a little bit closer to what we budgeted for the year. But I mentioned that, if we continue to have staffing challenges and we have trouble recruiting, we could be in the same boat as some of the other sheriffs that have had to push their feds out. So it'll be a little bit challenging to talk about our budget going into next year. It's just something we're going to have to think about when we budget for that anticipated revenue, but we'll address that then. I don't have any other updates. I believe 2 of my resolutions will cover some of the items I put in my report, but if there's any questions before we get into the resolutions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Anybody have any questions? I see a couple of hands. We'll start. with Chris.
Let's go first. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just see that you have 2 road patrol vacancies. And I know that you guys aren't exactly overstaffed. I'm just curious, is it starting to have an impact on your ability to provide patrols north, south, and central?
No, we're still putting at a minimum 3 cars out there.
Okay.
Plus a supervisor. And it can be challenging with vacations, and we do have 1 member out with a medical issue, but it does get a little bit challenging, but not to the point where we've had to reduce the number of cars or minimum out there. So we are still putting at least 3 in a supervisor, more if we have the coverage, but we're okay being down those positions right now.
Thank you.
Mr. Seal, I saw you.
I just wanted to quickly thank the sheriff and the DA for coming up to District 1 to Fairhaven on the holiday weekend to hold a coffee event. And it was well attended. Thank you very much for making time for us.
Absolutely. Thank you for hosting us up there.
I passed 2 cars on the way in, so that's. What is one local board in? What do you mean by that?
So though, that would be an inmate from a local jail, another sheriff's office. So we boarded in recently for Oswego County and for Cortland County, the sheriff's there. Occasionally they'll have someone that there'll be some type of, conflict or something. They can't board a particular inmate in, or if they don't have the staffing needed to keep all of their areas in the jail open, they'll board out to other facilities. So we currently have one local board in from another sheriff's office.
You don't need contracts, they just reimburse the cost of the inmate, is that how it
Correct.
works?
The State Commission of Corrections gives us authorization to do that transfer, and then we just invoice that sheriff's office for the boarding fee.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Sheriff, I know you got a civil service test coming up, I believe, very quickly, and you got more than you thought we were taking it. You got quite a bit, right?
This Saturday, we have our test is going to be given for the road patrol position. We did do quite a little bit of recruiting, and I think the last I knew, we were up to about 60 people signed up. So that's encouraging, but I think I mentioned multiple times with our last custody test, we had 39 sign up and only 20 actually came and took the test. So almost half didn't show up on test day. So we'll see. Hopefully we get a large number on Saturday.
Just a quick question, because I know somebody who just got out of the military, who was military police. Do they have to go through the same process as everybody else, or do they have any kind of?
They do. They have to take the same civil service test and would have to go through a New York State certified academy.
Okay.
So yeah, they would have to go through the same process.
We got hands up everywhere. Lydia, go ahead.
If there are extra applicants from the civil service test for road patrol, are you allowed to use them for custody?
No, unfortunately, it's a separate test, so they're two different tests. So they would have to take each test to be considered for both positions.
Thank you.
Mr. Basile.
Great question, Lydia, because that was my question, if they could do a crossover. Are we charging for the exams? We talked about whether we're going to charge.
So I believe we're still charging $25. I think it would be a good idea to talk about eliminating that fee, but right now I believe it's $25 to take those exams.
Okay, and then on another note, Andy, I know a couple of young men that they do get service credits in their exam.
I think it's 5
Civil service
Yeah.
exams.
Disabled gets extra too.
Yeah. Oh, good. Thank you.
No, just the 25 doesn't go to the sheriff's department, though, it's an HR.
HR, they
Yes,
collect
right.
that. They collect that fee. It doesn't go to us.
Right. But it could be a deterrent, is that what you're saying? I don't know if it is or not, but
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know either because 19 people paid the $25 and didn't show up for the
right,
test. So
right.
I don't know if that would
Yeah,
really draw
right.
more people.
Can I?
Absolutely.
I'd just like to say, for what it's worth, I think we should do anything and everything to facilitate people getting into law enforcement, because if you plot this out over a few years, we're gonna have an issue. Not just us, but nationwide. So if my humble opinion is, I think we should do whatever to help facilitate interest in the law enforcement positions.
I think that nominal fee though is just to keep people that are really interested to do it, versus ended up with. It doesn't do any good to have 200 people taking the exam for nothing. They're really
I'm just saying, but it better, if I could, Mr. Chair,
could be refundable.
how many would you say make it through from the test to the physical through the academy? Of 60, how many do you hope to get?
Just from my experience, anecdotally, it's usually we lose. So you get about 3/4 of the people that take the test will pass. Of that number, you lose about half to the physical agility test. And then when you're going through the background process, you'll lose another half of those people to the background process. And by the time you get to the interview process, of the 20 people that took our custody exam, I think we're going to be lucky to have 5 people that will even be able to interview based on my past experience. So that's the challenge. 60 sounds like a big number, but depending on how many people show up for the test, that's going to be whittled down very quickly. So we used to have 200 or 300 people show up to take the exam, and that was without no recruiting 10 years ago. So that's where we're at today.
Sounds like it's picking up though.
Hopefully, fingers
See what
crossed.
happens, yeah.
We'll see. We'll see how this goes.
Okay, without further ado, let's move on to resolutions. AP 7.
JP7, I'm looking to create and fill an LPN position, a licensed practical nurse in the jail. This is to manage the state mandated medication assisted treatment program that we were mandated to have in place by October 1st. Everything's moving in a positive direction with that. I've been Lauren Walsh and Dr. Duckett to put that program together, and we've moved our inmates that are going to be eligible for that program into a particular area to prepare for that. But it's certainly going to take additional nursing staff, and it looks like this is going to be the most economical way to address that need, is to create an LPN position rather than another RN position. And we can fund that with money that's coming from OASIS currently. We got $100,000 this year that was put into the mental health budget to create this program. We can utilize that funding for some of our costs, and certainly for this position. It's been allocated in the budget by the state for next year, so if we can utilize it, some of that money towards this position. But I will be in full transparency letting you know that that $100,000, once we get fully implemented with this program, is not going to cover all of our costs. I anticipate between the medications, covering some of the mental health time, and for this LPN, I think we're going to be probably covering a big chunk of the LPN position with it, but it's not, this $100,000 is not going to cover all of our costs going into next year. So certainly another one of those mandates and things that we have to address, but unfortunately it's going to impact, our local budget a little bit next year. And, if the state decides someday down the road here that they're going to eliminate that $100,000 a year, then it's going to have a pretty significant impact, but we're mandated to put this program into place by law.
Are you actually paying county mental health for their support for this program with your own revenue, the sheriff's department's revenue?
No, we haven't contracted with them, but I believe that Lauren's anticipating additional time that it's going to take her social worker and mental health prescribers. They're going to have additional time in the jail that, she's looking to cover some of that time using some of this grant funding. So
she wants a piece of the 100,000.
She's going to have some expenses herself, and we don't know exactly what that's going to be until the program's implemented, and we don't know exactly how many inmates are going to be on this program, but we're anticipating that, there's probably going to be a fairly significant cost to the medications that we'll utilize this funding for, along with the labor time. So I think it'll cover most of it, but there's likely going to be a part of it that's going to have to be covered by our local budget.
Okay, let's go ahead and I need a motion and I need a second.
I'll second.
And I've got a second. Now we can have the discussion. Any discussion about JP7? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carried. JP8, sir.
Just authorization to replace my confidential secretary, which is a budgeted position.
Move it.
I have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carried. JP9.
This is to fill a deputy sheriff sergeant's position due to a retirement.
I need a motion.
Move it.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. JP10, sir.
Sure. And Mr. Chair, if I could just mention, if there's any interest by the legislature to explore allowing our department heads to fill these positions that are budgeted throughout the year without going through the resolution process, I can tell you that I spend a lot of time writing resolutions and going through this process to replace positions that are budgeted, kind of routine things. And, I know everybody along the way that has to review them spends a lot of time doing that, but, I would certainly advocate to try to do that, to streamline things and just make things more efficient for us. I mean, we could certainly address those issues in the budget if there was a desire by the legislature to not fund those positions in the future. But I think, budgeted positions, I spend a lot of time writing those. So I just throw that out there if it's something that the legislature would be willing to consider in the future. I know there's been some discussion about that.
I think
We've had that discussion
we've
in
had
the
that
past,
discussion, and
and I don't know where it ended up. I don't like, maybe that might be a legal question. Is that legally possible, sir?
Yeah, I mean,
There we go.
I think at times the legislature doesn't realize the extent of your authority as you go through the budget process, because if you unbudget a position, it's effectively gone. So you can do a lot through the budget process. And as the sheriff has indicated, doing these, in series, one at a time for each department head, you could eliminate that. I mean, you'd have to do, my recommendation would be that you do a resolution that says this is how we're going to do it from now on, starting with the next budget year, just so that you have a record of having made that decision and then work with it.
I think we'll take that into consideration. Mr. Basile.
Just want to make sure I understood what I heard is then, so at budget time, you would take a look at each department and you would say then that they're budgeting 25 people and you say, no, you're only going to get 20. And if they get 20 for the year, then someone retires, they could fill that position, whatever.
No.
And that's how you would, because I think the process, the way it's set up now is to, so if there is a position, they say, wait a second, this doesn't, I know these are being filled for retirements and so forth, but as far as it was a way because it was out of control from what I understood in the past. People were hiring people and the legislator didn't even know what was going on. And that's how this changed. That's how this came about.
I don't want to make it sound too simplistic because you have the backside of the issue is you could have a department head could theoretically budget for 10 positions, but only fill 8 and kind of bank the money for the other 2 vacancies to maybe use for other things down, during the course of the year. So that's kind of the backside to the question. But certainly if you budget for a position and you had a process that, as I say, you put in the form of resolution, you could allow those positions to be filled without necessarily having to come back for each individual one.
Okay.
Might complicate your budget process. And like I said, I don't want to make it sound too simplistic because there's some variables involved.
I have one question from Andy and then I'd like to move on in the of time.
Yeah, because we've gone down this road. It's simple. He's filling a vacancy. We shouldn't have to. This is a budgeted position. This is a position that's been there for, I don't know.
Understood. I said that at the beginning. I understood these were.
Yes. When they want to come to us for a new position, that's when they should come to the legislature. Then we save a lot of time and not have to go
You
through.
really need to look at the number of people that each department's budgeting.
Okay, I think this is a discussion for maybe another committee.
Sure.
Maybe, and definitely.
Stick around.
Thank you for allowing me to mention that.
Next one.
Go ahead with JP 10, sir.
CP10 is another vacancy created by a resignation of a registered professional nurse in the jail in October, so we're looking to fill that.
I need a motion. I have a motion and a second.
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion?
Did we vote on 9?
Yes,
Don't remember.
yes,
Okay.
correct. Amanda, we voted on 9.
Yes, you voted on 9.
Good, thank you. My memory's not as bad as I thought. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. JP 11, sir.
JP 11 is to create and fill another special patrol officer position to plug into the Union Springs School District to contract with them to provide those student resource officer services. So this would be a very, very similar contract to the Moravian Port Byron that we've done. And this does include the 15% administrative fee that we discussed during the course of looking at the Moravia contract.
Move it.
I have a motion. I need a second, or I have a motion and a second between Andy and Chris. Any discussion on JP 11?
Is this just a yearly thing or can you do it multiple year?
So the length of the contract,
Yeah.
I believe we're looking at a 5-year contract with Union Springs.
Does it each school pick their own time or
As far as when the individual works,
no, as far as the length of the contract? Are they all?
actually, that was, I had recommended that. That was my recommendation to have a 5-year contract. The way the contract's written, if our costs go up, like labor costs or anything like that, equipment costs, that's borne by the school. So we don't have to readdress that again. So my thought was with them taking care of any of those increases, we can just, extend it out 5 years.
And what will the officer do for the couple months school's not in?
They're employed hourly, so they won't be working with us. They're basically a peace officer who's working hourly in the school. When they're not in the school, they're not paid by us or the school. So
It sounds so derogatory when you say peace officer. It's not that bad.
nothing wrong with that. We need our peace officers out there. They play an important part of our law enforcement system.
We need peace.
Yep.
All in favor of JP 11?
I,
Any opposed? Carried. JP 12, sir.
I don't have that on my agenda, but I think that's the resolution to consult with Tetra Tech.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
In May, the governor issued Executive Order 18 requiring that each county create a plan to address domestic terrorism in their community, to assess how we get information relative to threats and people that could be potentially able to do that type of thing and how we address it. So there was some funding that the state put out, $172,000 that was made available to our county that we're going to be applying for. We're submitting the grant request on Friday. It's not a competitive grant. That's money that's going to come to us. So we're able to utilize that funding to contract with Tetra Tech, who's also working on our continuity of operations plan right now. So we could contract with them utilizing this funding, and there's some other money there for some other costs that we'll have with implementing this program. But I think I've mentioned already that we've been in the process. Lauren Walsh and I have been partnering on creating a threat assessment and management team to deal with threats in our community. We've already been doing some of this work, but this resolution will allow us to contract with Tetra Tech to meet the obligations that we have to meet with the final plan being required to be submitted by the end of December of this year.
Okay, I need a motion.
move it.
I need a second.
Yeah, second.
Any discussion on JP 12? Mr. Peters.
Sheriff, you gotta help me out here. This is spooky. Help me find a reason. Tell me it's mandated by the state. What if we were to not accept the funds, then they could not tell us what to do with the funds, huh?
So we get to decide what we're going to do with the funding within certain parameters, which it does provide, that we can use it for consulting, we can use it for training, we can use it for educating the public about how we're going to address these things. So the state doesn't specifically mandate what you're going to use the money for, but it does outline that all of these costs that we're going to have to implement this program and create this plan within our community can be borne by that grant.
All right, so I'm sorry, because I'm trying to do a conceptual mental gymnastics here so what you're saying is this is required by the state. You have to do it regardless. And the monies from this will allow you to fulfill the mandate from the state.
Correct. It will assist us in doing that. And I'm certain that money will cover all of our costs that we're going to have in implementing or creating this plan.
Okay,
And even if it doesn't, you're not obligated to give any additional money back to the state. This is the 172 is the counties.
Well, I think it's going to be a reimbursement grant. So
Oh,
we're
so
going to
spending
have,
claim.
yes, we're going to have to show our costs to be reimbursed. So
They got their finger on it. I know.
I know you're getting exhausted. Do you think there's any worthwhileness to this?
So I will say yes. I don't think that we needed, this is my personal opinion, I don't think we needed a governor's mandate to do this. Lauren and I were already working on this prior to this mandate being put out there. We were forming this team, and I'll just to try to help you understand what we're really looking at here. There are, especially right now with our schools, we have kids in our schools, and we've already dealt today, we dealt with two that are making some pretty serious threats to shoot up our schools, to shoot other students. And some of these threats that we get, some are just, in my opinion, a kid's crying out for help. Others really concern me. They're kids that have done this in the prior year. In one case, there's a kid that we found was searching how to build a rifle, build guns, using school equipment. So these are things that we need to take extremely seriously. And what we're trying to do, Lauren and I and our agencies, is take a prevention approach to these things by forming a threat assessment and management team. Not be reactive after something, God forbid, serious happens in our community, but take these threats, work in a multidisciplinary way with the sheriff's office, mental health, any other law enforcement agency we need to, DSS, assess these issues, determine if they're credible enough that they need follow-up, and then stay on top of them, not just close our case at that point, but stay on top of these and make sure we're following up to prevent any catastrophe from happening in our community. So I think that we need to expand this from not only our kids in school, but to others in our community that are displaying threatening behavior. So I have a vision of looking at, people that exhibit stalking behavior or, ongoing domestic disputes where, we're concerned with violence. I want to task this team with identifying these cases, staying on top of them, and trying to prevent something bad from happening. Certainly, we're going to address these things with our law enforcement response if we can, but there are many times when we don't have charges, right? Or we don't have the ability to force somebody to get help or to do something. So I think by taking this approach, we can potentially prevent something from happening in our community. And I'm very concerned with what we're just seeing here locally with everything that's on social media, with the headlines you see on the national news. Our kids and people in our community are watching that every day. We can't bury our heads in the sand. That could happen here. So we've got to take a proactive approach to making sure we prevent any of that type of activity.
Andy.
I agree with you 100%. I'm all for it, but it goes back to the discussion that we've been having or listening to everybody in this room. I mean, you just made the comment, kids that have done this before. Why the hell are they still in school? That's the problem. Why are we the recidivist rate, however you pronounce it and all that? I mean, we don't do anything. If a kid's made threats before, my daughter went through this 2 years ago in school where a kid literally tried to beat the hell out of her on the playground, and he was out of school for a couple months and then he was back and he started the same BS over again. She was scared to go to school. Why the hell was the kid back in school? Why the hell are these ones back in school that you're talking about? Why the hell are people getting put back on the street that are doing these things? We can't solve these problems until we address the true problem that's going on, because it's getting worse. So, I mean, I'm all for it, Brian, don't get me wrong, but we can throw millions of dollars. We can throw hundreds of new employees. We can do everything. But if we're going to just say, go back out and do it again, where's the problem get solved? So, and then let's take away people's privacy too, like with the new gun laws, and look at, social media and all that kind of stuff. Because yeah, that's going to solve problems, right? I'm pissed off as hell on social media all the time. So my threat to society, I mean, I'm pissed off right now, obviously. So my threat to society, no, I'm pissed off because I'm sick and tired of what's going on in society and we don't solve the problem. So.
Okay, any other?
Do you need a hug?
All right, any other discussion on JP 12? One last comment, Brian, I'd like to, obviously it's not a discussion for here today, but at some point in time, I'd like to sit down. I have some concerns also. And you and I speak most of the time, so I'm going to have a conversation at some point in time. Okay, with that, all in favor of JP 12? Aye. Any opposed?
No, I'm for it. On the credible testimony of our sitting sheriff.
All right, carried. Thank you, Sheriff. Anybody else have any other comments or questions for the sheriff? Okay, one last item on the agenda that's not on the agenda, but we have Miss Tracy Colson here. Tracy, stand up and introduce yourself. I believe you are DWI and traffic safety, correct?
I am. Hello, everyone. You might recognize my name, maybe not the face. Tracy Colson. I am retired from the sheriff's office after 33 years. And I was also working in the Stop DWI program. I've been doing that for almost 30 years now. And I started under my father at the time was coordinator. And then Lloyd took over. And Lloyd has stepped down within the last year and I was appointed. So I just wanted to come up and introduce myself because I know there are some folks that I have not met yet. So, and I'm also the secretary for traffic safety, which is chair is Sheriff Skanks.
Okay, I had that wrong. I'm sorry.
It's okay, no worries.
So Lloyd's rubbed off on you and you don't want to leave the county.
I haven't wandered too far, right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, welcome, Tracy, and
Thank
and you're
you.
more than welcome here any month, and we would look forward to having you here a month.
Thank you very much.
All right, with that, I will take a
Adjourn.
Second,
then I have a second. All in favor?
all right,
Mr. Petrus.
soon as possible, let's shoot for 5 minutes if we can. But I get it.
Good call.
Thank you, everyone.
I got your number.
You were the
I'll try not, Chris, I'll try not to bother you.
No worries, no worries.
If
Just a heads up that I have unmuted chambers.
Unmuted.
All right,
Yes.
so,
And you know what?
Sure.
Alex.
It's not up for vote tonight.
Trish is, she's
On each side of them.
Thank you.
Upper right.
okay, she's still there, thank you.
Haven't sat on this side there.
And everything.
Aileen's excused?
Yes, I've seen perspective.
And then
Hey, everyone, we're live.
Heidi, Lydia is here, Hans is here, and Mr. Shea is here. All right, call the meeting to order. Minutes to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? I don't need to stand for this. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. All in favor? Oh, we did that. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. All right. First, I want to say I saw Katie on there before. Is she
Stay
still?
lazy down on the bottom.
Okay, good, because I definitely can't see that far. I want to apologize to Katie and Cheryl. They called me earlier to say that they have a resolution, but I was stuck at work. So, but if you have any questions, again, Katie is not there. But I just want to get that out of the way, apologize to them. So, Katie, if you want to say anything. Yeah.
Actually, are you hearing me?
Yeah, I got you, Katie.
Okay, actually, there's an update on our report this month. We said in the report that we were going to be going countywide with ballot on demand, and we're not going to be able to do it because we accepted delivery of 30 printers, and we've been notified that the printers will not handle a two-sided ballot. So we'll only be able to do ballot on demand with the city and the donut towns, the same as we have done, that we did for the countywide primary. They're working on the problem, but it was a programming problem with the printers. Fortunately, we hadn't paid for them yet, so we've got 30 printers sitting in our office taking up space, but they're not going to be workable for November unless they come up with a solution before the end of this week, which is when we have to certify our ballots. The second thing is our resolution that's on the agenda for tonight is just accepting the grant for 23,000 plus, which is a grant that accompanied the requirement that we send out return paid envelopes with absentee ballots. When they passed that at the state, they included grant money for every county in order to cover the postage. So our postage grant is 23,000. It's only good for this year.
So let's go ahead and do that since the commissioner brought it up. I will entertain a motion for GO1.
Move it.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion regarding GO1 accepting the funds? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Any questions for Katie?
Just for information, for the information of the committee, the Democratic Deputy Commissioner has left for another job. I can't imagine that she thinks she's going to be happier somewhere else. But anyway, there is currently a vacancy, and I am having difficulty recruiting a person. The part-time clerk that we've had in the office is going to temporarily step into the job, but she's not really interested in long-term, accepting it long-term, since she's already retired once. She is willing to take it on from now through the election so that we can get through November, but going to be looking for a new deputy. That's it.
Any other questions? All right, again, Katie, I apologize. I couldn't get to the phone today. Usually I make you guys a priority, but
No, that's all right.
all right, thanks, Katie. All right, Sheila. Amanda's probably on for Sheila.
No, I'm on.
Oh, okay.
Surprise,
I'm
surprise. Okay, employee recognition is this Friday. We have about 70 employees that are signed up to be recognized and get their pins and or certificate. And also have lunch, and we have some legislators coming, so hope to see most of you there. Departments are still working on their policy updates. As they get them, they're sending them in, and then we're just tweaking them a little bit to get them ready to go. There is 4 policies on tonight under Clerk of the Ledge. 2 of them, Shereen and Lynn are going to address. Another one, Jen N. Delicato will address. And the third one, I believe, let me see what that one is. Oh, the transfer of funds. Lynn will address that one. If you have any more questions, let me know.
All right, let's start with questions before we get into the resolutions. Questions for Sheila? Okay, thanks, Sheila.
Thanks, Sheila.
You're welcome.
All right, so let's get into, well, how do you want to do this? Do you want to come back and discuss these, or you guys want to take them one at a time right now? Any preference?
One at a time. Let's go.
Let's go. All right, GO2. I'll entertain a motion for GO2.
Move
Oh.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All right, discussion on amending the Cayuga County transfer of funds with the department's contractual accounts policy. And I can't remember whom Sheila said was going to be addressing this one. Lynn, thanks.
So there was a little change, just to change it from the administrator to the chairperson or designee to approve the transfers, but we also increased the amount from $10,000 to $15,000. This resolution the transfer amount hadn't been changed in well over 10 years. So it seemed time to raise a little bit to give us a little bit more flexibility. So this would be for transfers that people don't need to bring resolutions. They're just transferring money within the accounts within their own budget. So that's what this would be authorization for.
Any questions, comments, questions for Lynn?
Move it.
So we already did that. We're good. So
Aye.
Good one.
if you want to call the question, all in favor? Okay, opposed, carried. All right, GO3, which is amending the Cayuga County's breach notification policy. And so let's do a motion on that, please.
Move it.
And a second. Okay, so we'll do motion by Mr. Shea and a second by Nightingale. And now let's go to, help me.
Discussion.
This one is,
I thought it was.
Shereen, do that or?
is it straight? Is it, this one's you? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's
All
okay.
right, so if, do you want to talk about it or just want to field questions or?
Yeah, actually, I'd like to talk about it just so there's a better.
Absolutely.
Policy, it's been on there a couple times. So there is a little PowerPoint, and I think Sheila, you're on. Do you have the PowerPoint there? Can she hear me? Sheila?
Amanda probably.
There she goes.
Yeah, Amanda, can you pull it up? Because I can't get it from this screen.
Are you doing the breach notification or HIPAA?
We're doing HIPAA. Yep.
Okay.
Oh, we got
So
breach
they're on-
right now.
You're on
They're together.
GO3 right now.
They're both together.
They're both together.
Okay, so you
Okay,
can just.
both together.
press-
All right, I'll go ahead and pull that up then.
Yeah,
Right,
I'm sorry.
whatever, as long as it
The
works.
policies are together, and the adopting of the HIPAA policy goes with the amendment to the breach notification. Can we do that, or do you want,
I'm gonna, if we can do it, if you're good, we don't,
is that okay?
you can sort of summarize both and then we'll
Yeah.
take the second one.
Will that work? I'll do whatever you want.
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I can't control the PowerPoint from here because they're doing it from home, so they're just gonna keep flipping through as I go, and I'll just keep talking. That way you can see some of the key points. So Amanda, if you can hear me,
Yes, I can hear you.
okay, so you can just keep flipping through it and I'll just keep talking. How's that? Because I have no control over the PowerPoint. Does that work?
Sounds good.
Okay, so you can just start whenever you're ready. So basically HIPAA, the Health Insurance Affordability and Accountability Act of 1996. What does it do? It provides the ability to transfer and continue health insurance coverage when families, when they change or lose their job.
It also reduces healthcare fraud and abuse. It mandates industry-wide standards for healthcare information on electronic billing and other processes. And it requires the protection and confidential handling of protected health information, which is also known as PHI. And you will see that throughout the whole policy. So how does this relate to us as the county? The county is actually a covered entity of HIPAA. The covered entity is defined as a health plan, and this is all in the policy, a healthcare clearinghouse, excuse my back, a healthcare provider who transmits any health information in electronic form in connection with any transactions for health and human services as adopted standards. And because the county provides healthcare through some of its departments, it is a covered entity. And therefore it's required to have this HIPAA policy that covers the whole organization. So the county is also a hybrid entity. What is a hybrid entity? It's a single legal entity that is a covered entity whose business activities include both covered and non-covered functions. And it designates certain units as healthcare components. The county has healthcare components and non-healthcare components within its organization. So back in 2019, just to give you some history, the HIPAA policy and amendment to the breach notification policy was tabled by the legislature. COVID-19 happened. The county attorney and myself, Rich Graham and myself, reviewed the previous work of the compliance committee at that time and the HIPAA related procedures for each healthcare component. And we therefore identified the need for a county-wide HIPAA policy that was provided to you in its entirety. So let's start here. We talked about healthcare components. What are the current county healthcare components, which are listed in the policy? They're the public health department, the mental health department, the sheriff's department, jail facility, and now the emergency management office. All the other departments of the county are the non-healthcare components. So a question was raised, if departments have HIPAA policies and procedures, why does the county need a HIPAA related policies? Because we're a covered entity, it is the county's responsibility under HIPAA to have these policies in place to assure that its departments are meeting these minimum requirements to protect the privacy of patients' protected health information. If you recall, I called that the PHI. The county must also have procedures to notify patients in the event there is a breach of their PHI. The amended breach notification policy provides clarity and coordination with the new HIPAA policy. So that's why there's the amendment to that policy. So therefore, the county HIPAA policies will set a standard that ensures that one, a compliance officer is designated to coordinate these activities of the HIPAA privacy officers for each healthcare component, which we just listed off. It also will set a standard that ensures that the federal regulation is followed and enforced within each healthcare component. It will also ensure that we as a county are in compliance of all these requirements that fall within the regulation. It will also ensure the training is provided initially and annually with each healthcare component. And it also ensures that the standards of reporting a breach and the documenting of that breach are followed, and that we maintain the records as per the records retention requirements set forth in that HIPAA requirement. So we talked about a compliance officer. In the policy, who is suggested that you designate to be the compliance officer? We are suggesting the Cayuga County Operations Officer. The rationale for this is the operations officer is the logical point person whose job duties include assisting the chair, executing and enforcing all the resolutions, procedures, policies, and the local laws adopted by the legislature. Who do we identify as the healthcare components HIPAA privacy officers in this policy? They would be the employees designated by each healthcare components department head. And then who do we identify as in the policy as the HIPAA security officer? That's our Cayuga County Chief Information Officer. And again, those are all listed there. So when you looked at the policy outlines, let's see here, the county is a hybrid entity. It also outlines and identifies all the officers. It also lists all the healthcare components. It also puts the requirements for informing individuals of the privacy note practices. Basically, each healthcare component has a notice of privacy practices. The PHI we talked about, it also outlines the uses and disclosures that don't require authorization, that require authorization, and that require an opportunity where an individual can agree or object to that. The policy C also outlines the minimum necessary disclosure, the rights of individuals, business associates, the training standards, the requirements for safeguarding the personal health information, how to handle complaints, a disciplinary action, mitigation process, retaliation and waiver, documentation and retention requirements, and the data breach notification process, which therefore is that amended Cayuga County breach notification policy. Coming soon with all of this, you will have something that will come up. That's the Cayuga County Corporate Compliance Plan. You can just keep your eyes open for that. And that outlines basically why we're adopting the HIPAA policy for Cayuga County, as well as amending the breach notification policy that correlates with the HIPAA policy. And we are open for questions.
All right, so let's do this. If there's questions specific to the breach, since we have a motion and a second on the breach. So let's go with that. Any questions on that? That's pretty cool. All right, all in favor? Opposed? Hearing none, carried. All right, so let's do again, a motion and a second, and then we'll have discussion on the HIPAA policy, which. All right, we got a motion by Mr. Shea, second by Mr. Petcher. Discussion, you can go right ahead and ask.
So thank you for the presentation. That was awesome. I kind of have a little bit better understanding. But only question is, did some of our departments had their own HIPAA policies before this? Is that my understanding?
They have HIPAA, well, we call them, there's policies and procedures. They have HIPAA procedures that they followed.
All right, so is this gonna drive changes to their procedures, or is that, and this is gonna be the countywide policy?
Yes.
And
So,
then their procedures will have to be modified to, if
Yes.
necessary.
yeah, to follow the
To follow
regulation.
this.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Okay, any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, so now we're on to GO5. This is amending and reinstating the Cayuga County policy for the sale and disposition of real property acquired through tax foreclosure. Motion. Okay, so how do you guys want to do it? You want a motion in a second, or you want Jenny to do or motion by Mr. Petcher?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Nightingale. So for discussion, Denny, if you want to say anything?
Sure. There's some pretty significant changes from our prior policy. The first big change is that this new policy delineates between the pre and post foreclosure procedures. The other really big change is it differentiates between sales to prior owners and parties in interest from negotiated sales. So the negotiated sales piece is new, which we kind of added in to allow a little bit more leeway on disposing of some challenged properties that we have. But first I'll discuss the prior owner and interest in party, the changes to that section. So we have increased the foreclosure fee to purchase outside of auction to the prior owners and interested parties. The prior policy, it was $400. This policy, it's $1,500. So the reason for that significant increase, there's a few reasons for that. One is to try to deter people from getting to the point where we actually foreclose on them, because it's a lot of additional work to undo that. The second is to not set an appearance that we're extending the redemption date. So we had actually consulted with our bankruptcy attorneys. And it was, the thought that it had to be a significant enough increase that it wasn't basically just paying the back taxes that makes it appear like we've just extended the redemption date. And then finally, in the past, we would just prepare a quitclaim deed to turn the property back to the prior owner or interested party. But now in this new policy, essentially we're going to apply to the court to vacate the final judgment and obtain an order to restore the pre-existing liens that were on the property. And that really, a lot of the prior owners, if they did have mortgages or liens against the property, it was challenging for them to get their lenders to understand what was going on and to get us the appropriate documentation to say that those things were going to be reattached. So by doing it this way, it's hopefully going to make it easier on those people that are purchasing those properties back. The other thing is also, if there are multiple requests from prior owners or parties in interest, we now have a set order as far as who will be considered. The prior policy, we had a small committee that would have a discussion and try to figure out who to recommend to the legislature. By having this set pecking list, it takes away some of that ambiguity and makes it clear as far as who would get preference. Like I said, we also added in the negotiated sale piece. That, again, they would have to make the request through the Director of Real Property Services. And there's a committee that would be convened, the Real Property Advisory Group, that would look at those requests and the different aspects of each scenario to determine, what recommendations to make to the legislature. So we really wanted to leave that a little bit more open, especially for, like I said, our challenged properties, like our environmental risk properties, in hopes that we could actually start to address some of those issues a little bit easier. And I think that those are the main large changes that were made to the policy. Rich, do you have anything to add that I may have missed?
No, I would just add that, this, going back to the question of when you have multiple requests coming into the advisory group for the same parcel. As an example, we just recently had a situation like that where more than one individual was interested in a parcel. And with the new policy, it takes all the questions out. There's a specific pecking order, as Jennifer mentioned, so that there's, the previous owner of record would take priority, then first mortgage holder, second mortgage holder, et cetera. And it just takes a large part of the discretion out. One of the concerns from a legal standpoint is that the board doesn't want to be in a position of being accused of being arbitrary or capricious in terms of, making one decision or the other. With the revised policy, it takes a lot of that discretion out of the situation, and for the previous property owners, certainly. On the negotiated side, as Jennifer said, we wanted to build in more flexibility to allow the board to consider all the factors involved with a particular piece of property, because if it is environmentally challenged, certainly one of the goals would be to find an individual who's willing to do the rehabilitation to restore it to the tax rolls. Then, the board would have to weigh the value of those considerations to, whatever is being offered. This policy would allow you to do that.
All right, so we have a motion and a second we're at the discussion portion. Is there any questions or discussion regarding GO5? Nothing, right, Trish? You're good? You've been
I think
conspicuously
so.
quiet.
No, I think having flexibility is a good thing. You know, one of the things the city's been doing for a couple of years is pulling some of those challenging properties and doing RFPs to redevelop them. And it's been very beneficial to the tax base in terms of what's happened, at least on one of those properties has been amazing. So I think having flexibility to be thoughtful about some of these things is a good thing.
Thank you. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. All right, next I think is county attorney. So you guys, I know it says no update, but just if you guys would like to add anything, say anything.
I don't think so, other than it's been really busy. Everybody's doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I'll echo that.
All right, any questions for the boys, gentlemen, I should say, whatever. All right, here none. Next is Sue. Sue, what's going on?
Well, there's a lot going on. Much of August and September, we dedicated a lot of time to interviewing, trying to find people to interview, hiring, and now we're finally training. We have one more person yet to hire, so. Lots of visitors at the historian's office from 5 states in Canada. And I'm doing some early educational talks to senior citizen groups to let them know their options starting in May 1st. 2023 is going to change the domestic travel in our country, and it's a big, big change. So I'm going there to try to get them to do something now and think about their travel, and everybody here too, because once those passports and the enhanced driver's license start, it's going to be very, very busy. So I say it every month here, but it's going to happen. We already saw a big peak in passports. So I think that's about it. Our revenue looks really good, especially in the clerk's recording office. The committees doing pretty good too. I think that they would do a lot better if there were cars for dealers to sell. You know, we would have the dealer work up to the ceiling if that were true, but there's limited cars for them to sell. So we're processing anything they give us pretty quickly, and so they're doing a great job there. So that's all I got. And the Dreams Project, it's big. That's all I can say. And it's moving along. And I went over to see the pilot boxes there. There's 250 of them just for the pilot alone. So it's a lot of sorting and everything, and the people there are doing a great job. So thanks. Any questions?
Questions for the county clerk? All right, thanks, Sue. Next is IT. Tom, you have one resolution and whatever, you know, your update.
Yeah, you have my report. You know, if you have any questions regarding the report or anything else related to IT.
Any questions for Tom regarding his report before we get into the resolution? You guys are awesome tonight. All right, so GO6, entertain a motion. For discussion. Motion, Mr. Petcher. Second, please. Second, Nightingale. All right. Have at it, my man.
So basically, this calls for a fill of just a recent retirement we had in the department on September 1st. So it would replace that position with a computer systems technician. And that would bring our department up to be fully 100% staffed, as I envisioned with our plan back in 2021. So, yeah, if there's any questions.
No questions? Standing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, next will be veterans. I believe, right? No, I skipped somebody, didn't I? No? Maybe?
Kevin's on the.
Yeah, veterans, right?
Yep.
I think we're good.
I thought you were saying,
No.
no. Gotcha. Thank you, sir.
All right, got my report there. We've been holding down the fort. I mentioned the PACT Act. It added some presumptives for conditions for veterans. We've seen an increase in calls for information and for disability claims. So that has kept us busy. We've also been making the rounds at a few events. Abate held a fundraiser for our Veteran Support Fund. And also still working with Nick's Ride, trying to get a alcohol-free event going over there. So we donated some money from our Veteran Support Fund over there. If you know veterans who go to farmers markets, we still have some coupons from the state, $20 in coupons. And they can go to farmers markets and also places like Owens Orchards. And we're working on giving those away before the end of the year and the season ends. So I completed what's called ETS sponsorship training. Essentially, as a service member leaves the military, my name is on a list. And if someone is coming to the Cayuga County area, I could potentially be their sponsor to help them integrate into the community, give them housing options, potential employment options, and things like that. That's a relatively new program that has started. I went through some training to get certified for that, and we'll see how that plays out in the future. So we're going to talk a little bit about in the resolutions, the Joseph P. Dwyer peer-to-peer program funding. But in a nutshell, this was a program started several years ago as a way to work on reducing veteran suicide. And the intent behind this program is that kind of like the drug and alcohol peer-to-peer is have a peer counselor who can talk to veterans at their level and their experience and work with them if they need help reintegrating into community or just having problems, outreach, contact. And that's what we're working towards. I saw the resolution made it for creating a position for the peer mentor. I've been working with mental health. The funding comes through mental health and to us, and I really have to appreciate the way mental health is helping us with the administration. And we'll talk about it at the resolution on what we're trying to do to create the position. And then we'll have some additional funding for outreach and events to reach out to veterans. I'm finding in my time here, this has been one of the fastest 8 months of my life, is that there are still veterans who aren't aware of some of the benefits they could get, or they've been hesitant to apply for them for whatever reason, pride or guilt in some cases. And I think that this position would help us with our outreach to veterans, potentially try and bring some younger veterans in for work. There's another resolution. It's called Green Light for Veterans. It's been going on for a while. Down at Cornell, they started it, and essentially you light up a building spotlight with green light to acknowledge veterans in really November around Veterans Day. So there's a resolution to designate Cayuga County as a green light county and encourage others to participate with us. I am working on a appreciation and outreach event with the YMCA on Veterans Day. I was trying to go a different direction, but that became kind of complicated. So I'm hoping that I can work with the YMCA in conjunction with the Auburn City Veterans Day ceremony, since the Y is within eyesight of there. Try and get veterans to either go to an information session before or after the ceremony at the YMCA. And as we work with the Dwyer funding, that is something that we could use that funding for. And I've also been working with the city of Auburn. I've got to get back with them, but there's some work that needs to be done at the Veteran Memorial Park. And we'll be working with them, even though it's their park, but we have a advise function in that as well. All right, that's my report. If we want to get to the resolutions, I can hit those.
All right. Well, first, let's do questions. Do you have questions,
Okay, yep.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, the Green Light program, Kev, that's a great program. It's been going on, as you said, for a while, but people haven't taken advantage of it. So I'm really glad you did this resolution. Have you reached out to any media outlets to try to get this out there to the public?
I have not yet. I was waiting for the resolution to pass and then I'll start a marketing, social media, probably get with the paper, some things like that.
Okay, just let me know. I've got a good media or relationship with the media, so we'll work on that together then.
Okay.
Thanks, Kev.
Further questions? All right, so I think that Kevin and the chairman did an outstanding job articulating GO 7 through 10. So if someone were inclined to offer them as a bundle.
Let's move it. Move it.
Okay, got a motion second? Okay, second, one of these guys. So discussion on the bundle, which is 7, 8, 9, and 10. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kev.
All right, so we got a couple things that are for discussion only. You again are on the spotlight, which is the first one is the Q County policy for remote work and remote work agreement. And, take it away.
I know, they nominated me. It's okay. So, Sheila, excuse my back, I'm so sorry.
You're good. You're good.
Sheila, I have another little, yeah, oh, there it is. Look at, ta-da.
It's up. I got you, Shereen.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, thank you. So there were, basically, this is for discussion purposes only, for this meeting. There is a group of us that worked on a draft of a remote work policy. Lynn Marinelli, myself, Fred Westfall, Diane Ferris, and Jennifer Marshall and Sheila Smith, who are all here either physically or virtually. And it basically is an innovative strategy to employee recruitment and retention. Everyone received a copy of the draft of the policy, so you had a chance to look at it before tonight. But basically, as again, Amanda or Sheila, if you just want to flip through, because I don't have the clicker, and I'll just talk and you can fill the screens. Sometimes I talk a little bit too fast, and you can start whenever you want. So we basically had found that it is proven that one of the greatest advantages of remote friendly work is that employees achieve a better work-life balance, productivity, and of course, morale does increase. As you know, we currently struggle to attract new employees for our county position vacancies. This is not new. And also physical presence has been found is not always essential to the success of some job functions. And Cayuga County, you know, offers several benefits to their employees. We try to focus on that. However, working remotely is not one that is covered in our policy manual right now. So we, as you know, I bring up the COVID-19. It resulted in a lot of struggles, as you know. However, Cayuga County, you know, had to stay innovative on ways to ensure that our community received services and while trying to keep everyone safe during that time. Although we had some struggles, we did end up finding some ways that were creative to meet everyone's needs. And continuum of services occurred while working from home. So that was one of our creative ways, just from working from home. We also found out that not all positions have the option of working remotely, and we are aware that office presence is also very important. Therefore, you'll see in the policy draft, it represented a hybrid style of work. You're basically working on-site and off-site. So therefore, as a remote work policy for our county, a group of us met, as I stated, who they were. We discussed different areas that we found to be important for a possible remote work policy and one that promoted this hybrid style form of work. We also reached out to other counties to inquire upon this process and if they had the same policies and if they also would share them with us, which they did, and we were able to review them. Tricia Kerr also helped out, the county legislator. She provided some information and feedback from a recent conference that she attended and provided some of the policies that were drafted. So therefore, the copy that you were provided, the draft, provided you a review of the areas that we put in the policy. The history and the background of the policy. We covered the employee's required process for the work arrangements when working remotely. The eligibility criteria we discussed for working remote. The requirements of the employee's remote workspace. We also covered the technology and the security expectations, as well as the results of violating the policy. We also included in the policy a periodic review. And that would be of the employee's work by their respective department head while they're working remote. A means of monitoring what they're doing at home. We also reached out to all of the county attorneys regarding a policy, the insurance carriers who looked at the draft of the content, as well as an attorney from Bond. Yes, thank you. I didn't want to not say that correctly. So, and of course, we made revisions based on all their review. They reviewed it and they provided us feedback that we were able to basically put in. Nope, I already covered that. Keep going. So she'll go through all that. So what is the plan for this policy? I think I'm out of line, but we'll get there. Please hold a minute. We'll cover this. So the plan is, first, we wanted to present it tonight to you to discuss the content and of course, answer any questions that you may have on it. Secondly, we wanted to ensure that the department heads provided us some feedback on the policy as well, because it involves them extensively. So we wanted to review this policy with them at the department head meeting, which is scheduled for September 28th. And of course, based on all of their review, we will make any necessary revisions and based on any discussions and answers to any questions. And of course, if you embrace this concept of the policy, we then can present the final draft of the policy in October at your meeting. And then if you approve it by government ops at that time, we will move it to the full legislator meeting in October for approval. So on behalf of our work group, I do want to thank you for reviewing the draft of this remote policy and listening to this tonight. It is a change. We do understand that. However, it can be very beneficial to our work environment. A remote work policy has been found to be mutually beneficial for the employee as well as the employer. The policy overall will provide a standard for our department heads to follow for an employee working remote. We had an opportunity to look at the policy. We did want to explain what the strategy was for the policy, the content of the policy, the plan of the policy, if you embrace it. And we're open for questions, all of us.
Okay, you're the boss.
Can you explain how this will help the COOP too, when something happens in the county that people can work from home?
Sure. So COOP relates, even going through COVID, we had found that when there are situations where we are unable to do our work in the building for whatever reason, basically there are positions where the employee can work from home and services can still be provided.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to tag on to that. Because I'm aware of situations where that has caused some problems. Is there buy-in for that? Because some folks say, well, you're still getting paid because you have the day off, because you can't go to work, but I still have to work for the same amount of pay. Is that something that's been considered?
Does anybody want to answer that question for Lydia? On the team, Diane?
Everybody's looking at
From
the corners
HR?
of their eyes.
Hi, Diane.
Hi, how are you? Yes, we have considered that. And obviously, if for some reason the building was closed and employees can't do their job from home, then obviously they would have to use their benefit time to cover that day, while others who are working obviously would get paid for the day.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Further questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'd be curious to know, and I haven't read this in detail, so I'll admit that right up front, but what's in place with this policy to monitor whether people that are working from home are we getting the full benefit of you know,
The quarter.
Productivity.
yeah, yeah, but that's a quarterly review. You know, it's probably not much different than when they're at work. I mean, some, you know, department heads might favor someone over somebody else, you know, I don't know. Is there a standard? Is there a checklist? Is there a way to monitor if they're working from home, they must work on a computer. Is there a
Right,
way to
I
monitor
think
their
we're
computer
not,
time?
it's really, a lot of the responsibilities put on the department head. Because everyone's jobs are so different in every department, there's no way to centrally monitor it. What we've tried to put in for some central monitoring would be that it's a hybrid plan for one thing, it's not just working from home.
Right.
And so you'd have to request, let's say I requested to work Tuesday and Thursday at home. Shereen would be my department head, she'd approve it. Diane will also have to approve this plan so that she can kind of monitor a little bit. You know, Shereen just letting her friend do it and nobody else in the department. So she can kind of take, you know, complaints from people who say Shereen won't let me do it. Well, I might have a job, I'm the secretary and I can't do it. And someone else is maybe a planner for Steve Lynch and they do work independently on projects, but really the monitoring would have to be done by the department head. There's no way that we can centrally monitor. I mean, I did go to a conference, we were at a conference with NISAC and they did have issues and the county administrator was discussing. And they did turn in the IT records and they were able to check when the person was online or not online. And what this person was doing was like working in the middle of the night. And it was something like crazy. And so they were working, but they were like, you know, we have actually in there regular hours.
Yes.
You know, you have to be within the regular hours of the county. You have to be available. You have to take time off if you want to. I still would use PL time if I want to go. Now I might ask my department head, Shereen, can I flex my day Tuesday? She might say, yeah, Lynn, you can. But the expectation is we're all working still the same core hours because we did find during COVID that when people were working different hours, it was very hard to communicate with each other in a timely fashion. You know, they weren't around, you know, versus, oh, I know Lydia's sitting at her desk, but she's at her house. I can call her up right now when she's there. So we tried to put a lot of things in there like that. So we did try and think a lot about ways to kind of still be working together, but just maybe not physically together. But some people will not be able to do it. And those department heads probably will not be recommending it. You know,
Cloud
they're
drivers
gonna,
won't be working from home.
exactly. There's a lot of jobs.
I will just say this, and I'm sure you worked on it hard, and I'm sure there's a place for this. I'm not sure how much of a fan I am of working from home, but I'm not going to be against the policy. I just, no good deed goes unpunished. Remember that a year from now.
We know that.
You know what I'm
way,
saying?
but
Because
yeah.
I think the concept is a good idea. I think the administration of it is going to be the challenge. That's just an opinion.
So
I can't tell you how good it was when it was high COVID to separate the recording office staff into two teams. Team one would be working from home one week, team two would be working in the office, then we'd switch. Just trying to keep everybody well. Number one, that worked for that. It wasn't every one of my offices, it was the recording office, the DMV, we couldn't do it because that's a state-run thing, they don't let you take that state stuff home, and so that was out of the question. But this worked well when I had to do it. We are a customer-centric office, so it wouldn't work all the time. And there are jobs that couldn't be done at home. And so we made up for that the next week. People did it, but I knew exactly what people were doing because the work got done. I could go on and see if there are any e-recordings or e-filings or anything. We did mail in the office. It was really a well thought out plan. But I like that in there, they say this isn't a given, this is a privilege. So I don't like it. I wouldn't like the fact that it's a regular thing. But if it happened again, that I was concerned about the health, and we could get our work done, I would do the very same thing. So that's just one office.
Mr. Chair, then Lydia, then
Jim, I think that once you read the whole thing, I think you'll be very pleased with it. I think everything that was offered to us is in there, and everything that we could study is in there. And I think you'll like that. If you have any questions, that's why they brought it today. If there's anything else you want in there or want out, just get a hold of Shireen and the group.
Yeah, that's-
discuss it.
That's what I would just like to add too, because I want to go home, but we're gonna get everybody before we go. But just remember that it's for discussion purposes only at this time, and we can follow up with questions. Then, yeah, we'll do Lydia and then Trish.
Thank you. I think it's great that you're putting this together. And the reason why I think it's great is because we're competing with so many entities when we're hiring people. I feel bad for Diane because this will be a huge HR headache when it's implemented, because you're gonna have some folks say, what about me? Because everybody wants to know what about me when they can't participate in something like this. So I'm sure you guys are gonna be prepared for that. But I really do thank you, because it's important. If we're going to be capturing hiring folks and hiring good quality candidates right now, they are demanding hybrid work. And there are folks, I talk to hundreds of people a week, and there are people who are saying, if it's not hybrid or remote, I'm not even interested in applying. So thank you all. I really do appreciate it.
Okay, Trish, and then you, Heidi.
I was just gonna essentially say the same thing that Lydia said. I'm really excited to see this policy come before us, and I want to thank you, Shireen, and your whole team for working on it. I too have not had a chance to really dive into the details of it, so I appreciate you sending it, and I certainly will. I wanted to just quickly ask, because it is hybrid, are there limitations on the number of days somebody could be approved for working at home? Or the other way to ask that question is there an expectation that workers at least have some time in the office?
Yes. Basically, in the policy, there is a work agreement between the employee and the department head that will identify what days they will work in the office and what hours, and what days they will work at home and the hours. And the intention is that that agreement be drafted between the employee and the department head. And of course, in collaboration and discussion with the HR manager, because that way there's another set of eyes on the position to see exactly how that's going to work and to ensure that it remains a hybrid situation. And it's not supposed to be long-term. It's supposed to have a periodic review, to see if it should be extended or stop. I hope that answered your question. So yes, there'll be specific days that they can work out together, the department head and the employee.
Heidi?
I think my question is pretty similar to Trisha's. In the policy under hours of work and compensation, is that where we're getting at the idea of the department head, the supervisor makes those arrangements? Because unless I skip that area on the policy, I didn't see where there was language that gave me any sense of this is a kind of, the expectation is no more than 50% or no more than 35%.
I don't think we wanted to put that in the policy. There is a form that then, that you would put it more detail. And there could be, there could be time periods where maybe for a month that you wanted to do it different, but regularly, I think we all, a lot of us were here during COVID, and I think we see that you do lose a lot if you're never in the office. So it's nice to have, the interactions with each other. Most of us do serve the public in some capacity. Meetings, I think we've all struggled with it, just being on Zoom, and it's nice that we can do these hybrid things even here. Some of us are here, some of us are on the screen. So I think we want to leave it very flexible with the department heads, because like we said, everyone is so different. We might have some department heads who don't really want to participate at all. And again, that will be Diane's fun of, having to sort out, is it reasonable? Maybe it is, maybe it's not, because again, we want to attract people. We want to retain people. This can't all be people's personal feelings. I have my own mixed feelings about the whole thing, but I mean, she's right that people have had this option now. A lot of young people especially really want this option. At least some, they might not be demanding it every day, but I think they really want to be able to have some flexibility. So that's what a lot of this concern is over, whether it becomes administratively a nightmare, or it might be something we have to deal with going forward in life. And that this is a new way of business. So we were trying not to be too controlling, I think, Heidi, for starting out with a policy, because we just don't know.
Sure. Heidi, there's a follow-up and then Mr. Chair.
Follow up about, not being too controlling. And the other one was about the appropriate workspace. The policy says that an employee has to have, an appropriate workspace. It has to be, it sounds like it needs to be separate, and it needs to be, allow for confidentiality, et cetera. But I think it also is saying that the workspace isn't going to be inspected unless there's an accident at that workspace. Or did I read that?
No, you did read that, right? We kind of struggle with that for a while, I think, because we don't want to be going out and inspecting everybody's workspace. But it is kind of implying that it needs to be appropriate. I think the attorneys were in that, and the insurance company too, just to kind of be like, they are still an employee, they are still working at that time. So there's someone covered under corporate, right.
All right, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, just the last, I know everybody wants to get out of here, but can you just explain to everybody about the oversight for the department heads too? Because there's a policy in there, a part of it about the oversight.
Well, HR, they'll work with.
Or the chair. I mean, so
And
the
the
department
designate,
head will have to request it, his approval from the chair, or if he designates someone else, maybe Shereen, to be the person who signs off on it too. So a department head also has to request this. They can't just be doing what they want either. So it's just gonna formalize things a lot more so that people know, they work Monday and Wednesday from home. That's been approved, it's fine, but then if, you hear rumors that they're never here, well, then you have somebody to talk to them about, because they would say that's not what, we agreed to or whatever. So I think no one is excluded from, this oversight and approval.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. That's good.
Any other questions? So just real quickly, I would just add that I totally concur with what Lynn and Lydia said. I think this is the way of the future. I think in order to be competitive, we need to embrace this. I can't believe even 3 years ago, I would not have thought that it was something that we would be saying and doing, but I think it's necessary and proper. So having said that, there's also one more thing. It's they're calling it Ledge 1. It's amending one of our prior resolutions. Anybody want to talk about? You want to talk about this one?
I can speak to it. If you want.
Okay.
Yes, on August 23rd, we passed a resolution regarding the election laws insofar as they affect smaller counties. There was an inaccurate line there. It was my mistake. Taking responsibility for it, where it said that whereas both the Democratic and Republican commissioners of election in Cayuga County are united in bipartisan support of this resolution. That is not accurate. This amendment is going to strike that line from the amendment. And I apologize to the commissioners on both sides, Republican and Democrat, for implying that anything else other than their personal opinion. It should have said Yates County, but we're going to strike the whole thing. I believe it's the decretal paragraph, an accurate decretal paragraph. I got that from council. So I'd like to thank him for that, and we will make the correction at the full legislature meeting.
Outstanding.
Thank you.
All right, so I don't think there's any need for discussion about that. I would just simply say I wanted to bring up that you may have thought you have gotten a reprieve regarding the formal government. You have not. It is just budget season. I will be back to my annoying self regarding that very shortly. We will be addressing our form of government in some capacity. We have one year left in our term, and I hope you can't make a motion to adjourn yet. I'm
not even on the committee. I just want to ask a question before you do motion to adjourn.
All right, go ahead.
Coming up and there's going to be a line item on the districts. Have we put out any kind of literature about the 15 versus 11 and any kind of literature about what the 11 means versus the 15? Are we just?
I'm not sure. I guess a smart man would defer to council right here, but I am not that. I would say that I think it might be up to the parties in order to provide education regarding that, but I could be completely wrong on that.
Maybe the Board of Election Commissioners. I don't know where that would go.
Okay, usually when there's some kind, I'm sorry, Lydia.
No, I'm
Usually when
in
there's
line.
some kind of something like that, that's gonna be on a ballot, there's
Well, I would think,
literature to say, I mean, we supported to put it on the ballot.
sure, I can speak to that as I was a deputy commissioner over there. I don't
Questions on it.
I don't think that, I think you're absolutely correct, and I think we should provide an education regarding that. But I don't think referendums on the ballot are anything new and different, and I don't think that anyone necessarily or all necessarily do get information. However, I do completely agree with you that, you know, the more information, the better education to the public regarding the districts. You know, that'd be great. But I don't, do any of you guys have any?
I have a comment. I mean, the legislators,
Before you comment, I have a follow-up that maybe you can comment on. How is it gonna read on the ballot?
Okay, yeah, that's, yeah.
if I'd known that, I would have brought the question. I can send that to you. I can send it to everybody. That's already
Please
been
do.
discussed with the commissioners and been approved. I'll be happy to share that with legislative members.
Thanks.
Typically, what happens is legislators can go to their towns and villages, go to their board meetings and start talking to them. That's usually an effective way to get the word out.
And I've done that a little bit already, but I get October to hit up everybody and say, do you have any questions on this? What, what's it about? Take my sheet that shows the different districts.
Right.
I'll do that for District 1, but I just didn't know if we did anything as a county, since it is a county-wide issue, and how is it going to read so that I can show them, this is what you'll be looking to see.
Yeah, I don't want to cross any lines in terms of county money being put forward. And I don't know, I could be way off on that. But yeah, so yes, ma'am.
The Board of Elections has prepared the verbiage already,
I worked with them. We worked together to prepare
so
the,
it's all done.
it's all done. It's been done for a couple of months.
Thank you.
Yes. I'll get that circulated tomorrow.
Probably has
Thank you,
the
sir.
elections website too.
All right. Anybody else? You want a motion adjourned by Mr. Petcher? Second by Mr. Shea, all in favor? Yes. Bye.
Have a good night, everyone. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.